So just when we thought that the Assassin's Creed Shadows debacle could not get any worse, that we gathered all the evidence that we needed and all the research that we needed to do was done, it has indeed escalated, with the Japanese government doubling down on their efforts to investigate not only the newest Ubisoft title, but also the characters within the game, specifically Yasuke, a samurai who turns out not to actually be a samurai, and most of that information about Yasuke all of these years was a lie perpetuated by a white dude in the United Kingdom who took a very small handful of tidbit information and created a gigantic spectacle that the West has run with for many, many years. Not only are Japanese content creators taking notice of it, but there are petitions being made, investigations being done by normal Japanese people, and letters being written to the secretary of the senator who is investigating this situation. But first, I'd like to recap with you all about what's been going on with Thomas Lockley, who has disappeared from the face of the earth only after being caught altering and manipulating Yasuke's history for so long. And after it was found out what he had done, he decided that it was best if he had departed from social media and forbid anyone from contacting him. And he also said that he had never worked on Assassin's Creed Shadows, has nothing to do with it, and felt it best that he disappeared. The problem was, he was lying. You see, this post from Grums here acts as a gateway into a very fascinating rabbit hole. Thomas Lockley, the historian who promoted Yasuke as a samurai, did a podcast with Ubisoft about it. Japanese have been looking into his book and widely discrediting his research. Here, Ubisoft uses him as a historical reference for Assassin's Creed Shadows, and here is a screenshot from the podcast, which I'm going to head over to now. And it says, Yasuke is one of the most captivating and yet mysterious figures within Japanese history. In 1581, at the height of the Civil War, he crossed paths with the country's most powerful warlord, Oda Nobunaga. Their meeting bound the two men together and set Yasuke on a path to become the first known samurai of African descent in Japan, which, by the way, has been proven now to be a lie. Delving into the history behind one of the two main characters in the latest Assassin's Creed game, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Matt Lewis and Thomas Lockley himself examined the few surviving historical sources to reveal what we know about Yasuke, Japan's first African samurai. So here it is. Here is the proof that Thomas Lockley not only lied about Yasuke for so many years, but he also worked with Ubisoft to help develop and perpetuate and spread this lie around as if it was historical fact. And this is something that the Japanese government is going to go after. I'm going to show you that video in just a second because it is crazy. But first, you have to hear exactly what Thomas Lockley himself has said about Yasuke and the accuracy of his samurai claim. Listen to this portion right here.
Do we know whether Yasuke undergoes any kind of formal samurai training? So he's often remembered as a samurai. As you mentioned, we don't really know what that means at this time. Does he undergo any kind of training in using a Japanese sword, or is it literally the case that Nobunaga gives him a sword and then we count him as a samurai?
Well, the romantic in me would like to say yes. Of course, he had training. The historian in me says probably not. The nearest we can get to any evidence is that picture of sumo wrestling. Sumo wrestling is a martial art, it's a preparation for war, for warriors. And that is some evidence that he's certainly engaged within martial pursuits, shall we say. But beyond that, it's impossible to say.
Did you hear that? He said that it's not confirmed whether Yasuke was a samurai or not. In fact, in this very podcast, he says that it's debatable what samurai even meant back in the day. So there's no real historical fact that Yasuke was ever a samurai in the first place, and the painting that he references to prove it is from an artist that couldn't even confirm if this was the real Yasuke or not. And this is the problem that the Japanese people are having, because this information is being passed off as historical fact to so many people. The Japanese people, as well as normal people in the West, have had enough. As you can see in this post, Thomas Lockley, author of Yasuke, Black Samurai, falsely claimed he never spoke to Ubisoft before deleting his accounts. It's now confirmed Ubi was influenced by him for Assassin's Creed Shadows and featured him in a Spotify episode. Lockley is now facing national backlash for his dishonesty. And he goes on to say the progressive critics who claimed only people from the West are upset Yasuke has been trending in Japan for 4 consecutive days. You don't trend in Japan for 4 days straight unless people are talking about you all the time. And that is exactly what's happening with Thomas Lockley. He's disgraced across Japan right now, and people are demanding that the Japanese government investigate him. It's not just something that they took up on their own. The Japanese people are talking about this. They sent up letters to the secretary who works for the senator who wants to investigate this stuff. So you guys are going to see that in a second. But what I read here from Learning the Law was pretty awesome. It's beautiful. The fools thought they could lock down Wikipedia and get away with it. This has made the Japanese people realize that the West wasn't portraying Yasuke as entertainment and a fictional figure, but rather as a historical samurai based on lies, and now they are angry. You have to keep in mind that not only is Thomas Lockley messing up the history with Yasuke and has been doing so for so long, Ubisoft themselves have taken Thomas Lockley's words and run with it as a historical source of information to make Yasuke who he is. In doing so, they have not only ruined who Yasuke was as a person and gotten it completely wrong, they have even gone as far as changing his very sexuality and personality. He's apparently going to be bisexual and like both women and men in some situations, as per that Park Place's report. New report claims same-sex romance options confirmed for Assassin's Creed Shadows. Now, this is something that I said in previous videos about Assassin's Creed Shadows. I predicted that they were going to do this because in past Assassin's Creed games, they have done this exact same thing. In Assassin's Creed Odyssey with Alexios and the other girl that you can play as, they also did the same thing in Valhalla, if I recall correctly, so they're going to do that again, of course. But this would explain why they hired that very interesting historical consultant that studies relationships between priests and young adolescent boys. Because as per YouTube video, it says romances are back and seems like they're going to work a bit different this time. For one, just like in Odyssey and Valhalla, we can still choose to pursue romantic relationships or not. But because they are two completely different characters that are playable, they will now both have their own unique romances. While in Odyssey, for example, both Alexios and Cassandra had the exact same options. Okay, well, here's the problem. Yasuke is a real historical figure and he's the main character of this game. So now they have given this character bisexual options. What is so funny about their change to Yasuke's personality and sexuality is that historically he is technically a Christian who works for the Jesuits, and he was supposed to help spread Christianity to the masses of Japan. So they're saying historically in this video game Assassin's Creed Shadows that Yasuke, a black man, was not only a samurai, which wasn't true, but they're now saying that he gets down with men sometimes, which is probably not true either. And they're just making it up as they go along. Not only them, but the people who study and research this man, who have studied and researched this man more than anybody else, still can't help but pass off the samurai lie that so many are now debunking. If you want to see how destructive Thomas Lockley's disinformation campaign on Yasuke has been in the West and in Japan, take a look at this post from Learning the Law, which is hilarious actually. Things are escalating quickly in Japan, and I know that for sure now. Now Broadway plans to distort Japanese history by creating a Yasuke musical titled The Black Samurai. Meanwhile, Tokyo Weekender, Japan's top English lifestyle magazine, is calling out Thomas Lockley. This man and Ubisoft are done for, and this is the article in question that he refers us to. Backlash over claims that black slaves were popular among feudal lords in Japan. On Thursday, Variety revealed that Joanne M. Hunter, the choreographer of School of Rock and Bad Cinderella, I love School of Rock, has been hired to direct the upcoming musical Yasuke the Black Samurai, which is expected to open in 2026. It's a year or so from now. With few historical documents on Yasuke, the story is likely to be chiefly based on the words of Thomas Lockley. I'm telling you, dude, when that production fails and all of these other people are forced to admit the truth after supporting this guy for so long, it's going to be a disaster for him. It's going to be a disaster for all of these people who have perpetuated and enabled this lie for all this time. The English author has received widespread criticism, particularly in the past few days, and has reportedly deleted his Facebook page. The biggest backlash has been against his claim that several feudal lords in Japan were happy to make use of black slaves. There have been close to 200,000 posts on the subject. What? Dude, this guy, he's in such deep doo-doo, man. He really is. And now for the main event. Let's read this post from Grum so that you can have full context as to what is now going on. The Assassin's Creed Shadows issues with Yasuke and the discredited historian Thomas Lockley have exploded into a potential diplomatic incident. Letters are being sent with questions to the Japan Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry. While the government have not taken action yet, they are waiting for final release of the game to decide, and there is mounting pressure in Japan to address the issue with Ubisoft portraying false information to Japanese children. How fascinating. Now, this guy right here is a member of the House of Counselors in the upper branch of the Diet of Japan. So he is in the government, all right? This guy is a secretary for a certain member of the House of Counselors, all right? So this guy is kind of a big deal. He's a middleman for information being passed from the people to the government and back and forth. And he also communicates with other branches of the Japanese government in order to get a bunch of information. Specifically in this case, that information is about Yasuke and Assassin's Creed Shadows, and not only that, but they're researching a whole bunch of other content pertaining to what YouTubers have talked about, pertaining to other investigations done by Japanese locals, etc., etc. And what they have determined is that there could be potential problems with this game that could escalate the investigation to higher levels. Now, if that is the case, then not only is Thomas Lockley in hot water, but Ubisoft could be in hot water as well. As if they haven't been in hot water already with their horrid gameplay showcases for both Assassin's Creed Shadows and Star Wars Outlaws, which we'll touch upon in just a minute. It seems that all of these people are in big trouble. But as it says here, he is a secretary for House of Councilors member Tetsu Hamada. He was talking about letters that were sent to him by Japanese people, to which he responded very promptly and sent information up to his superiors. But he also reached out to the National Diet Library, which is basically the National Library of Japan, in order to ask questions about Yasuke's history and to determine how accurate his history is. Because if it turns out that, of course, it's not true, which by the looks of things, it might not actually be true, okay, guys? I think we have enough evidence to make that established conclusion by now. It's going to escalate. Now, I want to show you guys this clip of what he says right here so that you can see that he actually said it, and he points out something about Thomas Lockley that is very telling.
そしてですね、この著書に関してですね、日本語の著書と英語版の著書が内容が違うということが指摘されておりました。これなんでこんなに差が出るかっていうと、日本語版
So if you did not hear what he says, he brings up the fact that Thomas Lockley says different things in his American interviews and his Japanese interviews about Yasuke's history. When he's in Japan, he acknowledges that not much is known to be able to confirm much of the information he has provided. And yet when he does his American interviews, he says that most of this stuff is true and that it can be verified and that the Japanese people are pleased with this information. So these people are looking not only into the interviews that Thomas Lockley has participated in, but also much of the content surrounding Yasuke's history that people have manipulated. They may have already reached out to Thomas Lockley, not much is known about that. What we know about Thomas Lockley is that he disappeared from the grid because he was guilty, knew it, and he was embarrassed and went offline so that people wouldn't contact him about his dealings with Ubisoft and the profits that he's made off of a speculative fiction book. Now, I do feel it's important to point out that the reason that this is being investigated is because people are talking about it. If they weren't talking about it and there weren't people angry in Japan over this, the Japanese government probably would not take up this issue because after all, it is a video game. And that is something that the Japanese government in this video, according to this secretary, describes, that they cannot fully pursue this video game until it comes out and they can make some more important distinctions about the accuracy of the game and the intent behind it, whether it's malicious historical inaccuracy or something else. But when it comes to Thomas Lockley, they don't really have to wait for that game to come out to be able to make the distinction that he was lying to people for years, manipulating Wikipedia to serve his own purposes with his book that he wanted to make money off of. They don't need any help with that. They can easily go online and find a bunch of content that proves much of this information, and they probably already have, which is why they are escalating this situation, it appears. So all of this is being passed out to the government in different branches, and this dude and probably other people involved are also participating and assisting in this investigation of Assassin's Creed Shadows. How does this make Ubisoft look? Not very good. The negative backlash is widespread, and the Japanese people are taking this into their own hands. I've been on a website or two just today of people who have conducted their own investigations into Thomas Lockley's crusade and historical fiction, and some of these things go on and on and on. I mean, this information is very public. It's not exactly something that you can hide anymore, and not exactly something that the defenders out there, the Ubisoft shills and the Yasuke samurai shills, can defend. Regardless of how many people say that the Japanese people aren't upset about it, that the petition for the Assassin's Creed Shadows controversy isn't doing well, even though it's about to hit 100,000 signatures. Yeah, that's a crazy number, guys. So yes, of course it's being talked about. Of course this guy is trending for 4 consecutive days in Japan because the Japanese government and the Japanese people as a whole are taking a look at this guy and they're realizing, dude, this guy's a fraud. He's been lying, and he's been lying on behalf of our people. And he's not even Japanese. That's why you have countless comments in here thanking this dude. These are all translated from Japanese comments, just thanking him for all of his hard work and actually responding and making note of these issues that the people are bringing up. And I guarantee you they're going to find some spicy info since he's sending this up to the official National Library. Dude, Yeah, it's over. It's over. And not just in a governmental legal establishment kind of way, it's also over in a public perception way too. It's not just Assassin's Creed Shadows getting wrecked in trailers and Ubisoft's gameplay showcases being destroyed. That also pertains to other games that are supposed to release very soon, including Star Wars Outlaws, which is doing horrendously with other gamers across the world. They are destroying this trailer in a ratio that is astronomically bad. 9.4 thousand likes to 19,000 dislikes. It's getting obliterated, and that is something that we have seen happen so many times with YouTube trailers for these games. This time it's for a good reason, because Ubisoft thought it was a fantastic idea to show gamers one of the most boring fetch missions ever created on a planet that is the most overused in any Star Wars movie or TV show, in one of the most remote and empty parts of the map that you can possibly think of, in order to get gamers excited for Star Wars Outlaws. By the way, hint, hint, it did not work. You guys want to see what kind of gameplay we have in store for us when we spend $70 to $150 for the collector's editions or whatever? This is what you have in store for you.
What is that?
It's just a Star Wars character riding a bike across a very empty desert for almost a minute long. It is crazy how little they have done in this trailer. She's basically going down into a Sarlacc pit and grabbing an item that she gives to a Jawa, and then he just throws it away, and then she's like, well, I'm glad I went through all that trouble to fetch this for you. By the way, all of that she goes through to find this item, she ends up not even being in combat a single time. And she brings it back to them, but after she gets out of this cave, this was the funniest thing that I have seen, because it brings home the fact that this game is extremely underdeveloped and has a lot of issues to work out, and that's apart from the fact that it's from Ubisoft, so you can bet that it's not just the graphics that are in danger, but the gameplay as well, which is also something that you see in the trailer. Check this out right here. You see that explosion? I've seen better explosions in the Doom franchise, like way back in the 90s. I've seen way better explosions than that. You guys have to see it. Look at that explosion. It's just doesn't even look like it fits into the game. And that's the problem that so many people have had with Star Wars Outlaws since they first started showing gameplay for it, is that the gameplay just looks really clunky. It looks dated, like something that came out in 2018. The combat versus actual NPCs also looks really dumbed down. The NPCs don't really seem to have a good AI, and the combat just looks really basic. Oh man, she shot a bomb and then a crappy explosion came out and a guy died. Like, none of these AI even notice her. Like, look at the way that she easily dispatches these two. She just shot them like 2 or 3 times and it was over. Yeah, honestly, overall, the gameplay is disappointing. If you guys want to take a look at the gameplay, go ahead and look it up. You can easily find it. It's an IGN exclusive gameplay reel, and it's not so different from the gameplay reveal for Assassin's Creed Shadows either. It had just as much clunky combat as this game has. It has rendering issues, but this is something that players have come to expect when Ubisoft announces anything, when they make anything. We just all expect Ubisoft to have clunky, underperforming, unfinished video games that can't even get anything right. I doubt that people will do as much research on the Star Wars video game as they will Assassin's Creed Shadows, but from what I'm seeing, the perception towards both of these video games is very poor, and these are two of their biggest games that they are releasing, which I'm sure they are hoping they are going to succeed with financially. But considering that the Japanese government is taking this issue very seriously, you will notice if you watch this entire video, the guy does not smile even one time. You will realize how big of a deal this game failing is going to be, and when this game releases, I can guarantee that many people, not just me, not just other content creators, but many people, including people who pre-ordered this game, are going to start finding issues inside of Shadows that they cannot refute, and they're going to start bringing it up. And what is Ubisoft going to do? Are they going to admit their faults? Are they going to be sued? Are they going to be taken to court by the Japanese government? I do not know, but one thing can be certain. Japan and the United States both think that Ubisoft is crap, and that is all I've got for you guys in this video today. If you haven't had the chance to like it and share it with your friends, that would be awesome. And hey, if you're feeling ultra spicy, consider subscribing to my channel so that you're always up to date on what kind of thing I've got going on. I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Later. Meow meow.